everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video of every book that I read this summer. I've compiled a list of the books that I read this summer and I'm here to give you my review, my ratings, basically going to be a summer reading wrap up. It's the first week of September, so it feels appropriate that now we're going to get into our fall reading, and I'm really excited because I do love the fall vibes. I think that like fall and Christmas reading is my favorite season for books just because there's so many out there, and I do love the fall. My birthday's in November. I love Halloween. So we are closing the chapter on our summer reading, which means it's officially time to start busting out the fall reads. Let's get into it. We have quite a few books to get through. The first book that I read was Rewind It Back by Liz Tom Ford, and of course I absolutely loved it. This series is everything to me. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I'm sure you've heard about it. This is a childhood friends to lovers story, and it's also a second chance romance. This is the last book in the series. This story jumps between two different timelines. So first we meet Hallie and Rio when they're young, and their bond, they have a childhood bond built on being that safe person for each other. They're good friends. They grew up on the same street, and then as adults we find out that they have grown apart, and then something happens which we don't know about until the end of the book. There's a lot of history between them, so all the interactions they're having while they're adults are clearly like there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of tension. One thing that really stood out to me in this book was how music was an aspect that connected Hallie and Rio together. I thought it was super interesting. It was very cute. He would make playlists for her of important times in their lives where he wanted her to remember certain moments associated with songs, and of course there are themes of forgiveness, family, learning how to let someone in after things have fallen apart. And I ended up giving this one obviously 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. This series is everything to me. I even gave the first one a pretty high rating, even though a lot of people don't really love that one. I just really love this series. All of the characters are from different sports teams, so it's a sports romance world if that's what you're into. It makes me sad that this was the last book in this series, but I'm absolutely certain that I will come back to it and reread it at some point. It was just so good. I think when I first started the series there was only 2 of the books out, so every time a new one would come out I'm sat, I'm ready for the new one. And I just know that she's going to be a comfort author for me from now on, and I'm definitely gonna read whatever she puts out. Next book I read was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. This one was actually a surprise 5-star read for me. I have read Carly Fortune's other books and they were good. I think I rated them 3 stars. So I was expecting to like this book, but not 5-star love it. So it was a pleasant surprise. I did absolutely love this one. The book follows Alice, who's our female main character, and she's feeling burnt out from her career. And so she decides to spend the summer with her grandma at the lake where she grew up. And while she's there over the summer caring for her grandmother, she reconnects with Charlie, who is our male main character. Charlie and Alice's grandma Nan also have the cutest friendship throughout the book. It was so fun to read. This book was inspired by Harry Styles' song Golden. That's just totally the vibe it gives, and as a Harry girl, it's just the perfect song for this book. It was definitely a good read to start the summer with because I felt like it just really made me appreciate the season that we're in and slowing down and enjoying the weather and enjoying the summer. I gave this one 5 stars, and it is the perfect lakeside summer read. Also, the setting is in Ontario where I live, so it was definitely really interesting to read about somewhere where you know quite well. I gave this one 5 stars. It was another banger for me. The next book I read this summer was My Friends by Frederick Bachman. This was the first book by him that I ended up picking up. This one is a little bit different from the more romance books that I typically read. It is categorized as a contemporary fiction novel, and it's very much a slice of life. It's very focused on the characters. The story brings together a group of friends from past and present and explores themes of grief, change, personal growth. The writing style did really stand out to me. It was very lyrical, and it's a lot more about the moments and the moments between the characters and their emotional connection and the way that each character shaped another's lives. I gave this one 3.5 stars. While it wasn't a new absolute favorite, I did really appreciate the themes that it explored. I thought the writing was really beautiful. If you like stories that are a little bit more thoughtful and slower paced and very, very character focused, I think that you would like this one. The next book I read was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one of my auto-buy authors. Miss TJR is that girl. I love her. I've read every single book by her, and Atmosphere was everything I needed it to be. It was so good. It's a historical fiction mixed with romance. It's set in the 1980s during the NASA space shuttle program. She does have quite a few other books where she takes you into a different timeline, and she does it really well. She does it in a way that doesn't feel overly confusing. There's not a bunch of language that kind of makes you disconnect from the book. It's written in a just very perfect way. So the story follows Joan, who is a professor, and she decides to pursue astronaut training. Follows her journey through the program, and she's also building a secret relationship with one of her coworkers. So it blends together 2 different timelines. We have her journey as she's going through the program, and then later on in the mid-80s where she's faced with a really emotional, high-stakes moment in a mission. The story has everything that I love about a TJR book. I love a dual timeline, a strong female lead character. And even though the book does talk about space and NASA, she did it in a way that, again, it was just very easy to understand. I never felt confused. A story about love and resilience and what one can risk for someone that they love. I gave this one 5 stars, no surprise, and this solidifies that I will read anything that she ever puts out. The next book that I read was The Tenant by Frida McFadden. This one was also on Kindle Unlimited when I read it. This one's a psychological thriller about a man who, after some hardships, decides with his wife that they're going to rent out a room in their home. After interviewing a few weird potential tenants, they find a girl and they think, oh, she's really nice, everything's going well, she moves in. Things are fine at first, but then weird things start happening, and the main character actually thinks that the new tenant is trying to sabotage his life. The more that he's trying to prove that she's doing these things, the more that he seems crazy and unstable. Classic Frida McFadden tension, building up the settings, paranoia, and I find that's really what makes her book so addicting to read. You just like feel like you need to keep going and you need to see what happens at the end of the story. They're just so binge worthy, and even though you're kind of rolling your eyes at the story a little bit because some of the things that she writes about are a little bit cringe, you literally can't stop and you're like, I must see this through to the end and get where it is. I give this one 2 stars. Her books aren't necessarily groundbreaking or life-changing. I think we all know that. But there's something about her books that I find are always fun to read, and I do always go back to them even though they don't always have high ratings for me because they are just so darn entertaining. So even though this wasn't necessarily a favorite, I will still continue to pick up her books. Next up, I read No New Things by Ashley Piper. This is a nonfiction book. It was just a random book that I found on the Spotify audiobooks. This is a nonfiction book where the author, Ashley, shares her experience of not buying anything new for almost 2 years, and she turned that into a 30-day challenge that's meant to help readers take a step back from their constant consumerism. What I liked a lot about this book is it doesn't come off as restrictive or making you feel guilty, because realistically, in this world, there are holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, things like that where you can't necessarily just stop buying things altogether, but it's more of a mindset shift where instead of buying a physical item, you might decide, oh, I'm gonna buy them an experience instead. I feel like I learned to appreciate a lot of the things that I already owned. She also included some really interesting facts and statistics about money and mental health and the way that all of those things kind of interweave to affect you. I don't usually really rate nonfiction books the way that I do with novels. I do highly recommend this book. It was quite a short listen on Spotify audio, I think only 5 or 6 hours. I do find that I did genuinely walk away with advice that even though I did read this a few months ago, I still think about every day. So if you have Spotify or access to this audiobook or physical copy, I do recommend that you read it as well. This next book was a reread. It is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was actually my favorite book of last year and it completely held up the second time around. The premise is really fun. It's about Justin, the main character, who is a software engineer, and Emma, who is a travel nurse, and they meet online over the conviction that they are cursed because every single person that they date, when they break up, they go on to find the love of their life. So they come up with a plan to date each other to try to cancel out the curse. There's a lot of family drama in this book. What I loved about this book was there is a perfect balance in between the plot and the romance. It's witty, it's romantic, it has an amazing summer setting, and the main character Justin is the perfect definition of if he wanted to, he would. Of course, I gave it 5 stars again. It's hands down my favorite Abby Jimenez book, and I'm probably going to read it again next summer. Another book I picked up this summer was Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. It takes place during the pandemic where a mother is working on her family's tree farm alongside her husband and her 3 adult daughters who are just starting out their lives. And while they're all stuck together working, the daughters are asking their mother about her past, specifically about the summer that she once was dating a now famous actor. From there, the book alternates between the mother's youth in the 1980s and the present of course, 2020. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. It definitely, again, leads into that slice of life vibe. It is slower, very character driven, very atmospheric. The imagery in the book was really beautiful, and I actually ended up also listening to this one on audiobook, specifically recommending the audiobook because it is narrated by Miss Meryl Streep, Queen, and this just brought a lot of depth to the storytelling. I could really picture her as being the mother in the story. Next up, I read Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. This is a suspenseful thriller about a young woman who goes missing after going out on a run, and then not long after, a mother and her very young daughter go missing as well. The story has dual timelines, so we have first when the initial investigation is happening, and then a decade later when one of the missing women comes back. There's a lot of dark secrets, things are unfolding, plot twists are happening. There was also different perspectives throughout the book, which I thought was really interesting because you're kind of trying to piece everything together and figure it out. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I thought it was very entertaining, but the ending for me was a little far-fetched. Next up, I read Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. This is about our female main character, Maya Kilgore, who's a 23-year-old grad student, and Connor Harkness, who is a 38-year-old brother's best friend, and they're in forced proximity during the brother's Sicilian wedding. Maya has this long harbored crush on Connor, but they do have that 15-year age gap, which is what makes their romance problematic. Alternates between the present day events at the wedding, the chaos, there's family drama, lots of unexpected events and things are going wrong. And then the flashbacks that kind of reveal their emotional backstory between Maya and Connor. It explores themes of age gap romance, found family, and then of course there's some signature Ellie Hazelwood wit and humor in there that we all know and love. I rated this one 3.5 stars. The tensions were really high in this book, and I did love the Sicilian setting. It was really beautiful to read about, but Connor's actions were very questionable. Connor was just very inconsistent and so focused on the age gap when clearly Maya is a 23-year-old woman and she can make decisions for herself, and he was kind of just acting like she didn't know anything and like he was the only one who like knew right from wrong. He would be so like, oh, we can't be together because of this age gap, but then he would hate when she would like speak to another man, and it's like, dude, you're doing this to yourself. Anyway, I rated this one 3.5 stars. Next up, I read The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This one is a gothic romantic fantasy. It is the first book in the Stonewater Kingdom series. We have the female main character, Sybil Delling. She's a young prophetess known as a diviner. She spent a decade serving in Trome's Cathedral. She's receiving visions from 6 omens through a sacred ritual, and as her decade-long service is coming to an end, she has to deal with there's a new king coming. All of her friends, the fellow diviners, are slowly one by one going missing, like taken in the middle of the night. So she ends up having to get help from Roderick, who is this very cynical knight. Sybil escapes the cathedral with the king and then proceeds on this long and dangerous quest across the kingdom in order to try and figure out what happened to her friends. There's a lot of resilience and self-discovery. The female main character is a very strong female main character. A lot of found family between everyone who is going on this journey with her through the kingdom. And this is a friends to lovers romantasy, so there is the romantic connection that develops between Sybil and Roderick. I am torn on this one. I found that the writing was really good. This was a lot of people's favorite fantasy of the year, but as someone who is not a true fantasy reader, I did often feel confused and like I was missing parts of what was going on. That being said, I think that the book succeeds on its own terms, and the issue was me and not the book. Just sometimes when I read fantasy books, I feel like I'm an idiot because I can't understand what's going on. But I don't know, I feel like sometimes fantasy just isn't for me. Start making up words and throw me into a story with like 25 characters. I don't understand what's going on. Maybe it's just me, but I did like the writing. So take with that what you will. If you're a fantasy reader, you'll probably like it, because everyone that I've spoken to that's a fantasy reader loved this one. I don't even think I rated it because I was just confused after I finished reading it. Last but not least, my last book that I finished this summer was Addicted to You by Christina and Becca Ritchie. This is a new adult romance, and it's the first book in the Addicted series. So we have Lily Calloway, who is the female main character, and then Lauren Hale, who are childhood best friends. They come from wealthy, high-profile families, and they have this 3-year-long fake relationship that they've created with each other because they both have addictions. They're each going through addiction, and their mutual enabling through them living together is kind of keeping those addictions hidden from everyone else in their lives. Secrets are exposed. The lines are starting to blur between their fake relationship and real feelings. It also explores the destructive patterns of codependent relationships. I find it was absolutely groundbreaking, but I was entertained throughout reading it. I did find it difficult to root for Lauren and Lily throughout the story just because their addictions were so strong and it was kind of overshadowing their romance and their love for each other. The vibe to me is a little bit of Gossip Girl, you know, everyone has their secrets, they're in college, and I do see myself continuing the series because I know a lot of people rate this entire series a 5 stars. And that is it. Those are the 12 books that I read this summer. If there's any books that you read this summer that changed your life and you think that I need to read them next summer, please comment them down below because I'm always adding books to my TBR. I'm always down to do a fall vlog. There's definitely gonna be some fall thrifting in the future. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!